Final Fantasy VII. You know the name, you've played the original, now we finally get to try the remake. In this video, I'll be going over the demo of Final Fantasy VII Remake on the PSN, but I'm also going to tell you how it differs from the PAX East demo I got to try this year at PAX East 2020. I've been waiting to play this demo for so long, like a long time, like let's say 20 years now, and I'm sure you guys have too, so let's just dive into it. Final Fantasy VII has a depth of different options. Cameras, you know what the deal is here, inverted X and Y, and you can have both at the same time. But what's really cool next is the difficulty features. Classic mode is your typical Final Fantasy game, except they do the hack and slashing for you. I'm not a big fan of it, honestly. It's not something that I would probably do in my playthroughs. I like to do everything myself. So I think I'm just going to choose normal for my playthroughs, and that's something we'll definitely do here in the demo. We have the cool intro here, and now, although it's not the full thing here in the demo, you still get the classic Final Fantasy VII intro. I'm just going to let you guys watch and enjoy it.
Get down here, Merc.
Pretty cool, right? Final Fantasy VII Remake is more action-oriented RPG than you're probably most used to. It's more like Final Fantasy 15 and Kingdom Hearts, but with Kingdom Hearts it's not as flashy, and it's certainly not as flashy as Final Fantasy 15, but it does have its own style, and it's so sweet. As you can see, Cloud can swing his big-ass Buster Sword with the materia glowing inside.
Who goes there?
This brings you to the first of many fights you'll have in this game. While the game doesn't seem like there's going to be random encounters like normal, it's still really fun, and god damn is it ever so beautiful to look at when doing the actions. Something you'll notice right off the bat is Cloud will actually level up to 7 there, just like he did in the original Final Fantasy VII game. After the battles, Cloud will obviously get his experience, and he'll also level up to level 7 here. Final Fantasy VII features much more voice acting and much more dynamic cutscenes than they did in the original game. You'll see this with Biggs, Wedge, Jesse, and everyone else that are tagging along for the ride. You can also guard in this game, which I thought was really interesting. And it actually is a very big, important part of the game, because this game, even though you've played this game before, it's not the same game you remember. It is a tough game later in the demo, and we'll see that. As you can see here, we have also abilities. These abilities range from Cloud's Braver attack to a Focus Thrust that will actually significantly increase stagger. That is something very important to know for later in the game. But for now, we're just going to take this guy out with Braver, because Braver, why not? It's Braver. You definitely want to use Braver right away. You'll also get these hints that pop up as well, and they are helpful, but sometimes they can get in the way of all the action. But I guess since it's the beginning of the demo, I guess we can let it go. As we journey through the menus here, you'll notice that we can set these different battle settings. These battle settings will allow me to use Braver, Focus Thrust, a potion, even magic, just by clicking the L1 button. I don't really use it in this demo because I want to get a full sense of the gameplay. And getting a sense of the gameplay is a huge part of what I wanted to do in this demo and in this impressions as well. I may use it here and there, but it's very sparingly. You can also see the items throughout the whole menu, and you get potions and ethers right off the start, kind of like you did in Final Fantasy VII, the original. You also can see what your party looks like and see the stats and everything like that. So it's very much akin to what you would normally find in a Final Fantasy game. But my biggest surprise was actually the options menu, and there's a lot of options for gameplay. If you've ever played Final Fantasy VII before, then you know some of these options already. You can also change the difficulty settings here as well. Cursor position out of battle and in battle? Are you kidding me? That's awesome. I never thought that would ever make it back in a Final Fantasy game. Minimap can be static or dynamic depending on what you want. I actually like the dynamic. The subtitles and chat log are always going to be dialogue and speaker name. I love seeing the text, and the text actually looks pretty good in this, if I have to say so myself. Combat control guide display, this is either if you want it or not. I chose to display it for the first time. Brightness can go all the way up to 10, and I thought that was pretty sweet, but I'm going to keep it at 0 because who really needs the brightness up that high? You also have camera controls and options, and this was insane. You have camera distance in and out of battle, camera repositioning. There's a bevy of options for you here. You can even change the responsiveness, the horizontal camera controls, up and down, inverted. Ally camera view will come into play when you select a character that you're not actually playing and you want to do an action for them. You can keep it on the character you're currently playing as or switch to another. I thought that was pretty neat. Lock-on controls also are in here too as well, but I don't really see a big need for it as the right stick does the job. Lock-on switching also does a great job, just the directional input is needed there. Combo targeting is actually really nice. So what happens is if you select that to free, it will pretty much select any character that you or any enemy that you want. And that's pretty much what you really want to have if you're using the free flow combat system. So I would definitely set that to free. Please know, however, I did use fix for this demo. Standard audio options here, nothing too crazy. When you're not in combat, you can use the items as much as you want. So be prepared to heal up before a big battle. As you can see, Cloud can also automatically hop over certain objects as well.
You got this.
Yeah, what he said. You're coming with us.
As with any Square Enix action RPG, you can roll around, get to evade, and use blocking to your basic advantage, basically. It's not really needed with these guys. These guys are pretty much your cannon fodder. It's unfortunate that the Shinra soldiers aren't that tough, actually. They're pretty, how we say, IQ impaired. Some really cool features here I wanted to point out here. Look at these ads by the Shinra Corporation. What level of care that Square has put into just the first area of this demo, and just really the game in general. You have different advertisements for certain things, like the drink fountains here, or the drink dispensers. You even have information about different trains going to the different sectors, just like Sector 5 there. The detail is also apparent here with the maps around Midgar. It's really, really awesome how much detail they put into this stuff. If you look on the top right, you can see the map and where the steps go. You can even see some old familiar icons if you look careful enough. And as you can see, you can collect potions and different treasure chests, so there's a lot of stuff that you can still do here in Final Fantasy VII Remake. If you look very closely, you can see a certain name pop up here. And I thought it was a nice little hint of the future. Let's put it that way. In some areas, you'll have to cut your way through to get to certain items, like these little gates here. You'll also find boxes in the wild as well. And I thought this was really, really cool, because now we can, do a lot of different things and find a lot of different things hidden within Midgar. Another thing that you don't usually see in the original game is that you can collect these Mako shards, which will give you magic power back. They also contain different potions and stuff like that as well.
So what's Soldier Boy's deal? Is he one of us now? He's got balls, this, what was his name again?
Cloud Strife.
Right.
And he isn't a soldier anymore. Still, he's a professional, unlike the rest of us. I'm glad to have him.
This is a one-time gig. When it's done, we're done.
Real joy to work with, though.
Real joy to look at, too.
Here we go.
As you can see, there's a lot of dialogue to be had, and there's some even on the off path.
I'd say you're not even reading the same book.
Jesse has a thing for Cloud, apparently. I don't know why.
Give it a rest.
Maybe it's his eyes. I don't know. As you can see, you can recreate the iconic shot of Cloud looking up at the Mako reactor.
Wow, they've almost got the door.
Totally don't forget to check different dialogue options. You might be surprised what you find.
You'll keep us safe, right, Cloud?
Speaking of that iconic shot, there it is. This game is brimming with detail, from the lights on the Mako reactor to just the shadowing and just the overall structure of the place. It's insane to me how much detail went into this game, and it just fills my heart with joy. Here we can lock onto targets, and this is something you're going to want to do, especially if it's this little good boy right here. This guard dog is tough, much tougher than I ever thought it would be. You absolutely need to use abilities to do some damage to him. So we're going to do a couple of things to try to stagger him. There's also another thing in this game called pressure. This will give the enemy a little bit to think about when you're slashing and dicing them. The more you pressure him, the more the stagger gauge gets into effect. So be sure to use abilities to get that stagger gauge up as fast as you can, because this will be a big turning point in the battle. Cloud also has another new ability called Operator Mode. This mode allows him to do bigger attacks, but it will slow him down a little bit. So be wary on when you use it. This game is a lot about the strategy, and when you play this game, you will know when to attack and when not to attack. And sometimes it's going to be hard to tell, so be sure to you only use it in strategic situations. Just like the old game, magic is a big part of the game. So definitely use it, especially in this game. If you thought magic didn't have anything to do with the stuff in Final Fantasy 15, you're definitely going to see a difference here. Magic is definitely useful in Final Fantasy VII Remake, so definitely make use of it. Magic is also helpful in getting the stagger gauge up, so you definitely want to get that up using magic if you have to. Weakness also comes into play in this game as well, because once you use magic and figure out what is and what doesn't help, it will be a big boon to you. So definitely use magic and your abilities as best as possible. One thing I wish Final Fantasy VII Remake had in this game, however, is random battles. While there's a lot of battles to do in the demo, there doesn't seem to be any random battles whatsoever. And that's kind of disappointing because I really wanted to see how an action game like this would do random battles. It almost felt like that this game would be more akin to Crisis Core and not so much a normal action game where you would see the enemies coming from a mile away, either through cutscene or just on the map. Unfortunately, no random battles such exist in this game, at least not to my knowledge. We'll have to see when the main game comes out, but I am very excited for the battle system regardless. I think it's really fun. I think Operator Mode is such a great addition, especially when you just want to slash enemies and don't really want to use abilities. Now, don't get me wrong. There are plenty of enemies to fight, and I'm sure Square Enix peppered the whole maps with all the enemies you want to fight. But it still would have been nice to see a more random encounter rate. I always did love those about Final Fantasy games, even though they can be a bit annoying sometimes. Final Fantasy VII Remake's voice talent is also top-notch.
I hear they make good guard dogs too. Bet you've seen a few reactors. So how do we get to the bridge above Mako storage? Ain't holding out on me, are you? Stamp scared to bite the hand that fed him? Or is he a loyal little doggy? Have it your way, Mutt. We can do this with you, or we can do this without you.
Different reactors,
Barrett's just
different
the same
layout.
guy as I
Depends
remember
on
in
his
Final
build.
Fantasy VII, the original.
Never seen one like this.
Very loud-spoken and
manage.
very opinionated and very emotional. Cloud likes to keep to himself just as usual and still really doesn't know who he is. And that's kind of what I expected out of this game, and then some. Which brings me to my next subject. Cloud's attacks. Operator Mode gives him some very fast hack and slash abilities, while Punisher Mode gives him more of a tough and brutal style. This style is used for punishing moves, especially when you stagger enemies. And this is what I like to use a lot, especially when I'm trying to stagger them as well.
Let's go.
Just bear with him for me, would you?
And now it's time to talk about everyone's gun-armed man,
Should've
Barrett.
asked for more money.
Barrett's also pretty unique that he has his own little gun right attached to his arm. Of course, that's pretty much standard for Final Fantasy VII. Unlike Cloud, Barrett has his gun arm to do most of his damage. He has two attacks. Normal attack, and of course, overcharge. Overcharge does a bunch of damage in quick succession. Unfortunately, he'll have to charge up his gun arm to be able to use it again. You can do it quicker if you keep pressing the triangle button. This makes it easy to deal damage in quick succession, which is great because Barrett is a lot of fun to use. And he can take out enemies pretty quickly with it too. His abilities are Steel Skin, which enhances the defense of just Barrett himself. And then there's Focus Shot. Focus Shot will allow him to do some pretty nasty damage. And not only that, it will also raise the stagger bar as well. You might have noticed that Cloud jumped up in the air to attack an enemy. This only really happens when an enemy's above Cloud. But it's actually kind of funny when it happens because I wasn't expecting it at all. But still, it's nice to see that Cloud can use some aerial moves as well, since he does like to jump a lot.
Look what we have here.
The laser security.
Puzzle elements also exist in Final Fantasy VII Remake, as you can see with these lasers. Lasers will appear on the ground, and they'll be part of an obstacle. Sometimes you're going to get hit, and sometimes you'll figure out the pattern right away. And in a couple of areas here, I kind of forgot what the pattern was, even though it was my second time going through the demo.
Oh, he's a natural. You okay? Pretty easy, right? Nice job, Cloud.
This last part is pretty tricky in and of itself. The goal was to try to get past this thing, but you have to wait to do it in a certain number of times, and I could just not figure it out. It looks like it was 5 times when I rewatched the video, though.
Look. They don't call those things sweepers for nothing. They can wipe out a whole squad in seconds.
Not if you wipe the floor with them first.
Now here's where the tough battle begins. You gotta take this guy on no matter what.
That hunk of junk is a heavy weapon.
You can use positionals to really get good advantage of him. Going behind him seemed to work the best for me, but you really want to use your magic and techniques to really take this guy out. I'll let you watch the whole battle so you can see how I did it, and maybe come up with some strategies of your own.
Take the lead. Whatever.
As you can see, staggering enemies is a huge deal, and especially with these tougher enemies. Staggering can be pretty much life or death situation here. So what you want to do is you want to get that guy pressured, and the more abilities and spells you use, you'll get him down. Don't worry. It's not impossible.
Of course. It just had to get back up.
So we knock it down again. No time to complain. Drive in. Now's our chance. Go.
Don't need to tell me twice. I'm going to enjoy this.
Sorry.
What are you, 20-something?
First.
Huh?
Soldier of first class. Doesn't go into the 20s.
What the hell are you talking about? I mean your age, not your goddamn rank. Though for all I know, a soldier's rank could be the same as his age. Mm-hmm. Guess that make you a 1-year-old, huh? Live and learn.
I couldn't help but just put that in there. The banter between Cloud and Barrett is phenomenal, and one of the highlights of this demo.
Do the honors. Prove to me you're the man Tifa says you are. That you're one of us.
Never said I was. I'm just here for the paycheck.
Then do the damn job.
What about the timer?
No, I thought this was such a nice touch. You can actually set the timer here to 20 and 30 minutes, and depending on which one you choose, Barrett will still just make fun of you.
Pretty cocky, ain't you? You double-crossing!
And this leads us to the big battle against the Scorpion tank. And I love how Barrett thought we were double-crossing him. Never, Barrett. Never would I do that. The Scorpion tank has 3 phases. One of them is just kind of sit there and get stomped on for a little while you try to figure out what to do. Thunder works best, just like in the original game. But watch out for its tail because it will get up, and when it does, you'll need to seek cover. That will be the next phase.
Should I be worried? We barely scratched the damn thing.
Didn't I tell you to use magic?
Thought you were full of shit. Got anything you want to say? Funny way to ask for help.
When you see the Scorpion tank go against the wall, make sure you switch to Barrett because he will be invaluable here. You can't reach with Cloud's Buster Sword, so it's just pretty much useless to even try using Cloud. You could try using Fire, but it's best to just use Thunder or one of Barrett's main abilities.
The hell is that?
A barrier? Never seen this defense system before.
I would like to wager that Cloud hasn't seen a lot of this Shinra's crap before. Anyway, Scorpion has now a new feature for himself. He has a shielding. This is where Cloud comes into play. You definitely want to get behind the Scorpion tank and try to do some damage to the field generator. You can also use magic here too, but I think it's actually better to use Cloud and use his Punisher mode at times too. Be wary because a powerful electric attack will shock Cloud whenever he's trying to get too close. He'll also be targeted for missiles, so you might want to look at that too.
There! Attack it from the rear!
Aye, soldier boy. Show me what you got.
Be prepared to heal, so stock up on potions in the prior battles before and find any potions you can find. Using Cure will work, but you definitely want to have potions too, because MP will run out. Make sure you also stock them on ethers once you find some.
Heal up and regroup. Now, hit it hard and fast.
Oh, you're in for it now.
Just shoot! Take the lead.
About damn time.
By the way, I hope you're blocking, because that also helps too. Evading, blocking, it all helps. Trust me on this. It really does help.
Wounds. Gotta be careful. Let's do this. Don't just fight. Adapt. Try this. Another barrier?
Oh boy, another barrier. Yep, so just use the same tactic. Try to go behind them and try to hack away at that field generator. Magic and abilities will work here wondrously. He'll jump back on the wall too, so just take care of him up there as well.
Could keep going if I heal up. Give him hell.
Let's do this. Not looking good. Damn it. Need to heal up soon.
At one point, he'll start using his tail to use a pretty devastating attack on you. If you're close, he'll start using it, and he will do a lot of damage. Now, I could have sworn someone said there won't be much strategy in this game. Yeah, right.
Let's go. Don't overdo it.
You think I care about a few cuts and bruises? Because I don't.
I guess we should talk limit breaks. Yes, they're back, and yes, they're still as cool as ever. Cloud has cross slash, just like he usually does, and it looks freaking awesome. Definitely check this one out.
Heal up and regroup. You're as good as dead.
Well, that certainly did a lot of damage. That took out the entire field generator. So don't be afraid to use a limit break on stuff like that. But you definitely want to save any more limit breaks that you have for the final part of the battle.
Watch the tail.
Now this is where the fun of the battle really starts for me. At this point he will raise his tail, which means you really shouldn't be attacking him, and if you are, you're pretty much stupid. Nothing too crazy here, just stand behind the pillars and wait for him to shoot his little laser beam. Once he does, you can go back to attacking him.
Now, go! Here it comes.
I'm really glad I captured that right there. It just shows you how tough this boss is. It's almost like he telegraphed me doing that. Man, this boss fight is fun. At this point, he'll go into the corners. It's probably advisable not to do and go what I'm doing right now, because he'll use that shock attack and hit you for pretty good damage. What you want to do here is actually just come back out and go back to one of these pillars here, because this is when he'll do his next laser attack. Just continue hammering on him, and he will go down pretty quick into his next phase and final phase.
Need to do something about these wounds. Incoming. Take cover.
There's really no other option?
Want to get shot? Be my guest. Strike now, before it fires again.
One of my favorite attacks is using focus thrust and then use thunder to create a pretty good chain of an attack. This will get his stagger meter to get pretty high, and this is when you can start going wailing on him. I definitely suggest going into punished mode to really do the damage in. Once he gets past this part, you'll have to start striking at the knees to really get him down. Again, just use your abilities to get his stagger meter up, and he should get down pretty easily. I'll let you enjoy the rest of the battle to see how this is done.
Damn it. We gotta take it out quick or we're screwed.
Oh, I am way ahead of you, Merc.
Gotta be careful. We gotta time our attacks just right. Hold out until you spot an opening. Bring it. Need to do something about these wounds. Steady. It's down. Rain hell on it.
Ain't gotta tell me twice.
Damn it. Need to heal up soon. Don't let up. You're done. I'll end this. There goes another. Now's our chance to do some real damage.
And boom goes the dynamite. Scorpion tank is finito. It was really great to do this battle, and I'm just so happy I'm finally getting to play this game as much as I want, or at least this demo as much as I want. You now get to finish out the chapter, but as the chapter's going on, I just want to comment on some of the things that I really liked, and some of the things I hope are improved maybe in the future of the game. For one of which, I pretty much loved a lot of this demo. I think it was a fun demo. I think it has a challenging battle system, and I think it's going to be one of those games where I think a lot of people will be surprised. It's not something that I thought was going to be polarizing, for sure. But at the same time, it's something that I was hoping would be fun for everybody, and I was hoping that people would really enjoy. Because I want people who've never played this game to enjoy it. I want the people that did play this game to really enjoy it. And I can tell from a lot of people's reactions today that they are definitely now more impressed with the game than they were before. And that's something I really, really like to see and really really am hopeful for the future of the game. Now, of course, this game is done in parts, so this game is only Midgar, and I'm fine with that. I think that's great. I think focusing on one area, or at least one huge area in the case of Midgar, is actually really cool, because now we get to see Midgar in its glory, in all of its glory. So I'm really, really happy to see Midgar being the focal point of this episode, seeing as how it is the first area of, the original Final Fantasy VII. With that in mind, I really hope that a lot of the key elements from 7 are put into this, like saving Jessie here when her legs gets caught. Although it's done a little differently, I think it's actually a little bit more, should I put it, theatrical. And I think it's done in a better way, and it really helps the narrative pushing forward.
My hero.
What I hope that isn't lost in translation, however, is some of the minute details, like this guy R6. I hope that shows up in the game somehow. I know it was a translation error, but I think it kind of goes with the theme of Final Fantasy VII. I really want to see stuff like that in here. Just poking fun at the history of Square, and there's nothing wrong with poking fun at yourself as long as you know it's just a joke. And I think that's kind of what this game kind of represents. A playful youth and a fun time had by all. And I can't wait to try the full game. So far, this seems like it is a faithful recreation of Final Fantasy VII, barring the differences of the story and the differences of what actually happens in the story. I think it's going to be a fun, nostalgic trip down memory lane, but with a new, fresh coat of paint, and I can't wait to see where we go from here. I think the enemy designs and the character designs especially are fantastic. Cloud looks fantastic. Barrett looks even better than I ever imagined he could be. I was hoping to see Tifa in this one, but of course it's just Chapter 1, and we all know that Chapter 1 is just this area, basically. I really enjoyed playing with Barrett. I think his moveset really fits his character well. I love the... not the operator mode, but the other mode that he has. It's really fun to use, and it's actually kind of fun to mash the buttons to get him to reload. I thought that was a nice little aspect. Limit breaks are really fun. I didn't get to use Barrett's limit break because for some reason it was really hard to charge, and I hope that's one thing that's kind of the same, because Barrett's limit break didn't charge as much as Cloud's did, or either that his damage input wasn't as much, so his charge didn't charge as much. So I think that's probably the reason why I didn't get it as often. Something I didn't really like, honestly, it really wasn't that much. I think one of them was, of course, Braver being a normal ability instead of being a limit break. I think that should have not changed. But, that's just one small, minute detail that, it's not a big deal in the long run. I think it's a fun way to introduce the ability, and honestly, I think it could be detrimental at some points, because while Cloud does have Punisher mode, it would be nice to have another power move that would be useful anytime he charges an ATB. Speaking of ATB, I love that system. I love how that works. I love that the turn-based style of it is still there, and it still feels fresh, and it still feels new, and it still feels like Final Fantasy. And I think that's what a lot of people are worried about with this remake, and I don't understand how people would think it wouldn't be as fun, because I know Square is going to do their best to try to make this as fun as possible, while still being the lovable 7 that we all know and love. So I did mention earlier that the PAX East demo that I played was slightly different, although it's not that much different. The PAX East demo was just basically this little part of the Mako reactor and then the boss fight with the Sentinel. I guess you have to make it so people can play the game in a reasonable amount of time. So you didn't get the beginning parts where you actually get off the train and fight everybody. You just get into the one area of the Mako reactor, or Mako reactor, however you want to say it. And that's pretty much it. You fight a few enemies, and then you're right in front of the Sentinel tank, and that's cool. I mean, it was a fun demo, and I thought it was really fun. The Square Enix booth was actually really fun this year. They had the Daytona motorcycle where you could just sit on it and take your picture. I do have pictures of that, which is really freaking cool. They also had Final Fantasy XIV Ruby Weapon, which I finally got my shirt to defeat Ruby Weapon, which I loved so much, and that was fun. So, I mean, there was a lot of stuff going on with 7 over the weekend, and I don't know if anyone really noticed it, but there was some interviews with the voice cast. You could meet them, have their autograph. I managed to meet a couple people from Square that gave me some great tips on content creation, and I really appreciate them giving me some pointers. Now, these bastards are really, really tough. These guys dodge a lot. You don't see shock troopers until just now, and you can see how well they are dealing damage to me. They are just wrecking me. It took me a little while to figure out that fire was actually the best course of action. They go out in one hit, or thunder. That also works too. Barrett isn't the best person to fight them because they are close up and they are fast. So you definitely want to use Cloud and use Fire and use different abilities to get them down. But once you get them down, they're not so bad. Definitely use Fire, use Magic to get those guys down quicker. With that, I am going to sign off, and I hope you guys have a great week. I will continue this video. You can watch the ending, and I hope you guys have had a great weekend and a great week. Have a good one.
Not looking good. You're done. No more playing nice. Keep it together.
About damn time! Ain't no thing! Hey, did you see me in action?
Must have missed it.
Sir,